Teresa Ulrich. I don't want to open a political maelstrom, but I'm just wondering if you have any comments about the tactics, strategies, and circumstances in place, rather than specifics of the ideology, that could be contributing to what I have gotten used to hearing called the immovable base of Trump supporters. I watched one of your videos featuring Janja Lalich speaking about her experience in the political cult, and it was very insightful. There's a lot to be explored about the similarities and differences of religious/spiritual ideology and social/political ideology as they relate to informing the choices of individuals. Particularly in the wake of the Cambridge Analytica news that is all over the place, I think it's interesting to look at the implications of privacy and financial integrity that are in play. Do you feel that the heat is more on Facebook or Cambridge Analytica, or do you see it as being pretty even? Well, nothing like these nice, simple questions for me to just breeze right by. There's a lot to talk about here, and I'm not going to give a full answer to every thought I've ever had about all this, but I feel very strongly about undue influence in any form, in any format, and in any subject or field. I feel that people have a right to be talked to honestly and directly about whatever the topic or subject is at hand, and I feel that they should be given complete information. This is the antithesis of how people are spoken to in politics. Politics is all about emotional influence, and it is very little. It pretends to be heavy on facts, and yet it's really not. Not in the marketing of politicians and the way that they are presented or the way they present themselves. They are trained rhetorically to not answer questions, to dodge, to give red herrings, to give straw men, just throw out logical fallacy after logical fallacy rather than directly answer questions that they feel might badly, give them a bad name or badly represent, who they are to, a certain number of people who might vote for them otherwise. So they tend to, to push out messages that are very emotionally involving, right, rather than rationally involving. And I think that's a shame. Sometimes you see some deep dives into some facts when you see debates happen on, between candidates, but that's pretty few and far between. And sound bites tend to be the order of the day, and we are not helped at all by the format of the major media channels, and I'm talking about all of them: CNN, MSNBC, Fox. The formatting is the same. Almost 80% or so of their content is opinion-based editorial content, which doesn't really help anybody. I don't mind getting a view or ideas or opinions from informed people who I might want to hear from. I don't mind that, but the panel discussions that occur on these channels where people are just talking heads, ranting at each other, that's not constructive at all, and it certainly is not news. It is editorial opinions. Maybe educated opinions, but still just opinions bashing against opinions. I think news should be about news. And I feel there's so much happening in the world, and the tremendous amount of focus on Trump as an individual and as our president doesn't really serve us very well. On all sides. I have my own personal opinions about Trump, which I'll mention in just a second here. I'll actually in a later question. On this question. My fight with media or in the political arena, from my point of view, where I'm coming from, is trying to fight against undue influence, against the lies, the propaganda. Okay, that's what I have a problem with. It would be one thing if we could get these politicians to stand up on platforms and say, these are the facts. This is the information, right? Here's the deal. And so therefore, here are my proposed solutions to those problems. Here's what I'm going to do about these situations, and just be very upfront about it. I wish that we could do that, you know, and of course, you know, if wishes were pennies, I'd be a millionaire, right? So anyway, that's kind of how I at least try to approach these things or see these things. And so when something like the Cambridge Analytica story comes out, or, you know, you look at, see how manipulation occurs through Facebook or Twitter or other social media platforms, that's even more concerning to me than the media manipulation or the political manipulation, because social media's entire purpose is designed to get people communicating between each other. And when you find out that those communications are being twisted and altered and manipulated, either through ads or through false fake news on any front, I don't care. I'm not talking about this from the viewpoint of liberals and progressives versus conservatives. It happens on all ends, and it's wrong on any end for any reason. You know, we shouldn't be being fed a bunch of lies by anybody for any reason. You know, we just shouldn't. And I know that it's kind of silly of me to put that standard out there, but I do. And so I think you have a platform like Facebook or Twitter or these other platforms that have gone out there on a business model where we are the product. So our information is kind of, you know, up for grabs, so to speak. And we kind of go into that knowing that that's the case, and we're willing to make a certain degree of trade-off because of that. But, you know, then there's taking it too far. And this Cambridge Analytica situation is definitely an example of taking it way too far. And I am absolutely sure that there are other Cambridge Analyticas out there. I don't think they're the only group that has done this. Where they take our personal information and profile us with it. Not for the sake of advertising products to us, but for the sake of manipulating our thoughts and feelings and emotions in order to get us to do certain things. It's a psychological experiment gone horribly, horribly wrong. And I think that Facebook is responsible for that by providing a platform and our information. And I think Cambridge Analytica is the natural evolution of that to where firms are put together with the express idea of manipulating us with our own information, twisting it around and using it against us. Twisting it around, I mean really just taking the raw data, coming up with an accurate profile of a person based on their information, and then targeting them with directed advertisements of in the case of Cambridge Analytica, of a political nature in order to sway decisions. But also not just targeting us with those advertisements, but also hitting us with news stories that have these headlines that feed into our confirmation bias and feed into our prejudices to give us the idea that things are a certain way, when the reality is that things are not really that way. They're either not that good on whatever front the fake news is on, or it's not that bad on whatever front the fake news is on. You know, imagine a world where we really had a proper estimation of where crime was at and where racial tension stood, and where, what work the government was actually doing. By the government, I mean Congress specifically in terms of legislation, or the White House in terms of the executive duties and responsibilities that they carry out, instead of scandal after scandal after scandal and lie after lie after lie that we have to sift and wade through. It's just so tiring. You can't even imagine a world where it's not that way because it's so bad. So I, my efforts on my channel here, in addition to talking about Scientology, is to talk about the mechanisms of those undue influence, so that hopefully by learning about the mechanisms of it and the how it's done, maybe you guys and me learning more about it and talking about it can more easily recognize when we're being unduly influenced or manipulated. That's about all that anyone can really offer, because there's so much of it, and we're inundated with so much of it, that it's impossible to debunk everything, I don't know. So those are some thoughts I had on that. I hope that's helpful, at least in clarifying where I'm coming from, and maybe some, some information you guys can use on that topic.